Welcome everyone to Fundraiser's webinar. My name is Campbell and I'm the lead implementation specialist here with Fundraiser. Before we begin, I'm just going to share some background about Fundraiser and quickly run through some housekeeping items. So some of you are already familiar with Fundraiser, but for those of you who are visiting us for the first time, welcome. We are a major crowdfunding and digital fundraising platform where all fiscally sponsored projects can simultaneously raise unrestricted funds via the fiscal sponsor's 501c3 status. FundRazr was launched in 2009 and today has raised over 250 million in over 100 countries. We recently launched our Fundraiser hub that includes tutorial videos, blogs, calendar of upcoming webinars, and live drop-in office hours that are there to answer all of your campaign questions and platform questions. I will also drop the link into the chat after this little introduction. Also, a few housekeeping items. Before we begin, you may have noticed that when you joined, you were put on mute. Since we have many people joining us today, it is important to minimize the background noise so that everyone can hear the presentation clearly. However, you are welcome to ask questions and make comments using the chat feature or the question and answer function. The entire duration of the webinar will be 1 hour, split into 45 minutes for presentation and 15 minutes for question and answer at the end. Please feel free to submit your questions via chat or the question and answer function, and we'll do our best to answer them in a timely manner. If you happen to encounter any technical difficulties with the webinar, please let us know in the chat or email us at webinar@fundrazr.com. I'll also drop this email in the chat after this intro. And please remember that we are recording today's presentation. So if you're unable to make it for the full amount or have any interruptions, we will be able to forward this to you via email after. So don't worry, you'll be able to catch all of it. And with that, let's get things started. We are very excited to have Daryl Hatton and Julie Jaley here presenting for us today. Daryl and Julie, I'll turn things over to the two of you to introduce yourselves and get the ball rolling.
Julie, do you want me to share?
Yes, please.
And there we go. So I apologize to everybody. My name is Daryl Hatton. I'm founder and CEO of FundRazr and of Connection Point. I was just in the Giving Tuesday Global Data Working Group where we're talking about how to get better data to help all of the causes that we work with kind of deal with some of the headwinds that are going on this year in the market. And it was just running long, so I apologize for that. But, FundRazr has been around since 2009, and we've helped raise almost $250 million for projects all over the world, over 100 countries, and including over 6,000 organizations.
Hi, I'm Julie Jaley. I'm the Director of Fiscal Sponsorship Collaborations. Prior to joining FundRazr in April of 2021, for several years, I was the Development and Fiscal Sponsorship Director with a local fiscal sponsor, and I have 17 years of nonprofit experience. So welcome and thank you for joining us today. All right, so we're going to discuss the 6 platform proven tips in this webinar, as well as some bonus tips that your projects can use to entice and inspire current and new donors throughout the giving season and well beyond with just this one campaign. So let's get started with Giving Tuesday. We view Giving Tuesday as a kickoff to the entire fundraising season. Yes, it's loud, it's busy, but it brings results. As Daryl just mentioned with his conversation that he just had. So a few stats about Giving Tuesday from 2021. So these are from Giving Tuesday's data. So in 21, Giving Tuesday revenue increased 9% compared to 2020. 11% of the US adult population took part in Giving Tuesday last year, and 80 countries participated. So it's a busy day, but it's important to be involved in it because donors pay attention to this day. And as I said, it's a great way to use it as a kickoff to the fundraising season.
Julie, if I can just add something that, literally breaking news on what happened. Part of the thing in the Giving Tuesday Working Group is determining and looking at trends that are going on. And they found that overall in America, about 85% of people are interested in actually helping out at this time of year. It is a very, very high participation rate or latent participation rate there. And one of the things that isn't, one of the barriers to helping getting them involved is we're not giving them enough opportunities for them to give. And this is kind of that whole concept of having a campaign at the end of the year that could be on Giving Tuesday and use it to kick off your whole year-end program, or it could even be on some specialty projects that are going on at the end of the year. So the takeaway for me was there's this urge that people are having, they wanting to give at this point, despite some of the economic headwinds. We need to give them more ways to be able to do that.
So we'll jump into the 6 platform proven tips. So we surveyed thousands of successful campaigns launched on the platform over the past 3.5 years that collectively raised hundreds of thousands of dollars. The campaigns used some or all of these tips that we're going to mention, and they either met or exceeded their fundraising goals. So I'm going to demo a few slides here with a mock campaign to send students abroad, exchange students, and then we'll jump into the live campaign after the presentation. So the first 2 platform proven tips are campaigns with at least one image were 21% more likely to reach or exceed their campaign goals. And campaigns with at least one video met or exceeded their goal 13% of the time. So as humans, we like to see real people behind the campaign and make a connection, which having some faces, having some connection really resonates and motivates donors. Tips 3 and 4. Campaigns that personalized the contribute button were a whopping 22% more likely to reach or exceed their fundraising goals. So you'll see here in this campaign, I changed the donate button to send students abroad. So making this small and easy change reinforces to the donor how their gift will be used. So the tip number 4 is to receive a donation within a day of launch. Nobody wants to be the first one to the party. So make a donation and get your campaign off of 0. Campaigns that received a donation within a day of launch met or exceeded their goal 6% of the time. So a quick donation can really illustrate that other donors are interested and give the campaign some value. Tip number 5 is offer donors bite-sized units of impact. So the campaigns that created their own default donation amounts met or exceeded their goal 12% of the time. So a unit of impact here, say a donor can only give a small gift, a $20 gift. So in this example, that shows the donor that their $20 helped cover passport fees, as opposed to just throwing their $20 into a big pot and they're not really sure how the money gets used. So knowing that their $20 goes to the passport fees helps create endorphins in the donor, is building connection and investment. So we also recommend being transparent about how the money will be used, because the projects are cultivating donors and they're building trust. Again, add some photos. You're creating connection. The donors want to see where the money is going and how it is affecting people.
Julie,
And honestly,
if I can just add one comment to that. When we talk about this level of giving, by making these things visual about what it does is it helps the donor understand the impact that they're about to create. And we really want them to visualize the impact that they're giving, because it increases their emotional engagement with the result. And it means that they're more willing to give you more. Like, it'll scale up the gift. They go, oh, if I give $100, I can contribute, I can get a different result. But it also means that they've got some satisfaction for knowing that that's what's been done. There's a talk that we'll have here a little bit about how to make sure that this isn't giving you restricted funding along the way. There's a technique to make sure that you don't have to do exactly what the donor said, because you get the permission to not do that. But I think it's really important that this visualization thing is really, really important for helping inspire donor behavior.
And the last of the 6 tips is using a feature that we have on the platform for updates. So the campaigns that used this update feature met or exceeded their goals. If they did 1 update, they increased the likelihood 1%, 2 updates, 20%, 3 and more updates, 33%. So this feature has several benefits. And one thing that we suggest is following the 80-20 rule. So 80% of the time, create an update that's news and updates. You can include campaign progress, thanking donors, and then 20% of the time asking for a donation. Because in addition to asking for a gift, you're also building a connection, you're building a relationship, and you want the donor to become invested. So another reason to use this feature often is people are juggling multiple tasks, obligations. It's a busy time of year, and they need to honestly be reminded of the campaign more often. So these tips are all easy to create and implement. And we'll demonstrate them after we do the presentation here on the live campaign. But again, so these 6 tips came from campaigns that we surveyed across the platform that increased donations for the campaigns that use these features.
And Julie, just if I can kind of add on to that, I'm driving her nuts, everybody, because I'm interjecting in her script. But one of the other things that came out of the Giving Tuesday talk today was the number of people that want to advocate for a cause. And when you post multiple updates to the campaign, you basically are giving them shareable content that they can use to help tell the results of what you're doing and share it with friends. So, if they made a contribution and then you said, hey, we've already put some of this money to work and these are the results that we're getting from it, they're more willing to go, hey, check out this cool cause that I'm doing, because look at the great results we're getting. In that sharing activity, they become an advocate for you for their own good reason. They're proud of the work that they're doing with you. So when you can get that out into the community, it can inspire net new donors. And this is one of the reasons why these updates work to increase your donations, is that it gives the existing donors the opportunity to share for you and help drive people forward.
Yeah, thank you, Daryl. And that actually reminded me, we had a campaign recently that was working with hurricane victims. So they created updates of how they use the donor gifts to buy water and buy mattresses, and really connect to how those donor gifts were used to impact the victims of the hurricane.
It was funny, one quick anecdotal story for you on that as well, is that there's one of the charities we work with is called Harvest Project. And I was nudging, because it's a friend of mine, Philippe, the fellow that was running the campaigns, and say, look, you got to post updates, got to post update, got to post an update. He finally said, okay, fine, I'll go post an update. And then he came back the next morning and said, oh my goodness, it really worked. We got a $1,000 donation from a donor we've never seen before. It's like, yeah, cool. But I mean, the point is that it inspired somebody to share the good work that they were doing great work, but people weren't finding out about it. This helped them find out about it. And some donor went, wow, I'll support that, to a reasonable check, $1,000. So one of the challenges in crowdfunding, especially for organizations that are just getting started, is that they may have the feeling, I don't have a crowd. Like, how am I going to crowdfund? Because I need people to talk with about this. And so one of the techniques that we talk a lot about is, how do you end up building up a crowd, creating the crowd of supporters and advocates who are going to help you out? And it really is that trick about using the power of advocacy, not just promotion. So it's not about always talking about, the ask that you're doing. It's frequently about talking about the work that you're doing, and the results you're getting can inspire people to want to help. When they've learned that first, and then you ask, they're going, okay, I get it. I can see how my money is going to help this out. So there's a variety of different people that you can use in the very beginning to start to build up your crowd. And we're going to go through them each in a minute. But the key point here is a lot of people think of social media as a broadcast tool. I'll publish it on Facebook and it'll all go out to people. I'll publish it on Twitter. The best use of social media is when you use it to have a conversation with your community and talk with them about the work that you're doing, some of the challenges you're having, some of the successes you're having. When you share in that way, that transparency makes it much more compelling for them to work with you. And there's lots of concerns about this takes way too much time. It doesn't. We can show you some techniques for how to make that efficient as well as effective. So, you know, when we're talking about going back here for a minute, one of the areas, and Julie, I don't know if I've got the slides in the wrong order, but we'll fix it in here in a sec. One of the places to start with your crowd is your board members. Now, they're already doing stuff for you. They might be helping you with the gala. They may be giving to you on a regular basis or annually. But one of the biggest things is that these are successful business people typically, and they'll have a network of connections. So an ask for your board members is simply to start sharing the campaign out. Ideally, they'd make a small contribution to help get off zero, as Julie mentioned in the beginning of your campaign. But even if you have a few board members and they share it out, they will get a much better result than you might expect. And we had one cause that a fiscal sponsor, Julie, can we talk? I don't think we can use the name, but they had a board member who really got into the idea of sharing, and they raised a significant amount of money in an unexpected way. They weren't expecting it. So, you know, it may seem like your board's already doing too much for you, but sometimes the sleepers are on the board are the ones that have the most social influence. And we saw this in another thing in the middle of the pandemic. Up in Brooklyn, there was one of the board members drove a significant portion of the funding for a project that ended up with hundreds of thousands of dollars because they never realized that that board member was so prolific in their sharing activity. And the platform helps you find that. But another area that you can get support from is your corporate sponsors. Now, a lot of the times your corporate sponsor may give you a gift every year. But one of the things that we've heard them ask a lot is, how can I help you more without writing you a bigger check? And one of the best ways to do that is to become an advocate for your campaign. If they'll share out to their, you know, you have to ask them to do this, but if you say to them, hey, you guys support us every year, can you share to your employees that we're working together on this project? We have a new project, and would you be willing to tell them about it, kind of give you an endorsement that this is a good thing to do? So if they can share that out to their employees, that's one area. Ideally, they would actually share it out to their supply chain, their customers, their suppliers, and you know, their business partners out there to say, this is the cause that we really like supporting. If you're looking for something to give to this Giving Tuesday, why don't you pick the one that we pick? And in that incentive, that endorsement message can really increase where you get funding from and bring you net new donors. Now, if your sponsor is willing, they may do a matching gift incentive. So if they're going to give you $5,000 or something like that, they may be willing to let it be a matching gift. And the platform that we have automatically will help you track all of that and, you know, use the budget that they've had to help promote it. And there's even ways to do it with a product sponsorship that we can talk about at another point. But the point is, the corporate sponsor is one of the richest sources of new crowd for you, because it doesn't cost them anything to share. So, Julie, do you want to? I feel like I missed.
No, you're good.
Okay, go for it. Oh, well, we didn't talk about celebrity.
Well, I think we're a little tight on time too.
Okay, well then hurry up, Daryl. Okay, go. Have you got the flavor of how casual we can be, you guys? Anyway.
So certainly, Daryl, feel free to jump in with any information that you got from your prior meeting this morning. Okay, so here are our tips to make the most of year-end fundraising with Giving Tuesday, as well as after Giving Tuesday. So a bit of a schedule. So November, create a campaign with at least one photo, right? Because then your odds are 21%. I'm not gonna say 21% higher, but the likelihood increases. And add a video, casual video. It can be with your phone. It doesn't have to be super professional. It needs to be authentic from the heart, because again, you're building connection with the donors. Personalize the contribute button and the donation amounts. Those will increase the likelihood of success. And contact your crowd and incorporate their support in planning. It can be the board, as Daryl mentioned, volunteers, any influencers, folks that you know that will advocate on yourself on behalf of the projects, either sharing the campaign, doing a match, somehow get some more voices that bring some value. And then we suggest
Julie, just before you go, the one thing that kind of we should have talked about in the crowd, there's a lot of question about, do you take your existing donors and ask them to give again in this type of campaign? If you're concerned that you're asking too much, one of the asks here, especially if they've already given you a gift, is just ask them to share. You know, they already support you. They've given you some money in order to help you deliver on your mission. Asking them to share is something that frequently they want to help with. It's not, you're not overburdening them with asking too often. One of the pieces of research says that and it came out of the Giving Tuesday thing again today, is that donors actually want to be contacted more, as long as you're not asking every time. If you're telling them stories about the work you're doing, they'd love to hear about that. They just don't want you to ask every single time. So the 80-20 rule applies.
Definitely. And we suggest doing a soft launch the day before. Make sure you do it the day before Giving Tuesday starts. Receive a donation that day. Whether it's you reaching out to a board member or somebody that you're confident will do it, or if you just need to do it yourself to get it off of zero. And then check in with your crowd and make sure you've got their support, share the campaign, and that they're on board on Giving Tuesday to either donate or promote on your behalf. Okay, the big day is here, Giving Tuesday. Share the campaign via public and private channels. So public channels are your Facebook and Twitter, on your walls, the public feeds that have visibility everywhere. And then your private channels can be Messenger, email. So reach folks in both ways, because not everybody wants to put all of their stuff out publicly, but you may have some folks that you want to reach out to, or their projects want to reach out to, that want to stay private. You don't want to call them out in a public place. And ask your crowd to share in their network, their social channels throughout the day. Be sure to keep an eye on the campaign and thank the donors as they're coming in. So back to the updates of thanking the individual folks as the donations come in and people comment. Create bigger updates of, wow, we reached X percentage of our goal thanks to you. We're so excited we can do this work next year. Back to the 80-20 and keep the momentum going. Keep the endorphins going. And then one more. The day after, on the 30th, go ahead and put out some more updates, some more kudos of thanks for the donation amounts, gratitude for the support, and ask that they continue to share the campaign through the end of the year. And then this December momentum, right? So we've got the big day, Giving Tuesday has come, we've got all the holiday parties, and then, you still want to keep the momentum going. So maybe you got some big donations throughout the period. The platform will automatically send their tax receipt. So, once that's set up, you don't have to do it again. But nurturing donors through a personal thank you email can go a long way. Continue campaign promotion and ask for donations and sharing, again, the public and private channels, bulk and personal emails, maybe even a phone call to a big donor would go a long way. Create the campaign updates, letting donors how their support makes a difference. Daryl, do you want to touch on these last two stats?
Sure, and one more that's not on there is one of the things that came out of Giving Tuesday today was research showed that if you can call the donor twice after they've made the gift over the course of the year, they are 70% more likely to stay retained as a donor and give to you again next year. So it may seem like it's, a little bit of work to do all that, but that work on those donors and just a quick call, hey, thanks for the gift, really appreciate it, looking forward to working with you over the course of the next year, can set the expectation that they're going to come back. And they can, it's a great opportunity to get in touch with them, and it can really increase your retention rate, which is a big challenge for everyone right now, to make sure it's not just a one and done. But we know that about 30% of annual giving takes place in December. This is because of tax incentives and because of holiday giving. It's around the the spirit of the season, if you will. So this is a really important time to be in the market, to be out there with opportunities for people to give because they want to. This is the time they're expecting to. So you need to make sure that you've got something there for them to meet that expectation and, get you some help. A lot of the people that are especially looking for the tax advantage, at the end of the year, about 10% of all giving happens in the last 3 days of the year. So it's really important that you've got everything kind of tuned up before you get to that point, because you don't want to have anything get in the way of that flush, that rush of contributions that can occur at that time. So what we thought we'd talk a little bit about is the headwinds that are in the market this year and some of the things that you can do to get over it. So when we talk about headwinds, there's economic uncertainty going on. I mean, inflation is up, stock market is down, and stock market tends to correlate with giving. So when stock market goes down, giving goes down. With inflation up, people are it's harder and harder to pay for groceries, harder and harder to pay for gas, harder to pay for heating. And as a result, we need to have an even more compelling reason for people to give in these times. Remember that they still want to give. They're just feeling the stress and the uncertainty. So there's a couple of trends that we can kind of count on in here that we should work with. One of the trends, especially with digital donors, is the shift from boomers who've been funding so much, the demographic shift, to millennials and Gen Z. They want to communicate in a different way. They want to use digital tools. They want, without making this harsh, they want it to be about them. They want to know what impact they made. It drives them very, very hard. And as a result, when you can harness that, they can do great things for you in terms of advocacy and helping find other donors, even if the gifts that they give are smaller along the way. It can really have a benefit for you. So one of the things, though, is that there's a big shift in the way they communicate, and also other demographics, the so-called soccer moms and those. There's a shift from public social sharing, like using Facebook, to private or dark social sharing, like using Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp or texting or just emailing to people. The days of having everything shared in Facebook in particular are really seeming to be behind us with the problems the company's having. So this shift to the private social means that we have to encourage people to be more proactive in the way they'll communicate. Now, funny enough, the millennials and Gen Z are naturally doing this already. This is one of the things that they do. So to get behind it, we need to give them content that they can share in these channels that makes it easy for them to tell your story. The other thing that to deal with this economic headwind is there's a shift going on, if you really want to get behind it, from major projects to micro projects. Now, if you imagine you've got a donor who's going to give a smaller gift, if they give you $50 towards a few $1 million project, it doesn't feel like they moved the needle at all. But if they give you $50 towards a $5,000 project, that feels like they made more of a difference. So if you can break up the projects you're working on into smaller increments and tell the story of how those gifts will be used, you can inspire a lot more donations from this group in particular. Digital donors in general like to be able to do this. They like to see the impact of the gift. So breaking the projects up into smaller pieces can make a lot of sense. And we have some technology in the platform that makes it much easier to do this than you might think. so that you can really reduce the workload you have to getting this result. And the shift then is from major gifts to micro gifts. When we're giving offline, we tend to do much bigger gifts. When we're giving online, they tend to be a lot smaller. And it's really important to acknowledge all of these gifts, because the person who gives you the $10 or $20 or $50 gift may be a strong advocate for you and helps you raise a lot more money than you might expect. They may have rich relatives. They may be influential in their family in other ways. They may be influential at work. So respecting those gifts and being grateful for them along the way and communicating that, not just taking the money and letting it come in, is a really great way to increase your engagement. And then a thing that we really need to cover here is the communication of direct impact. We've said it a couple of times. If you go back even to the point where we saw the photos of the level of gift, when you can help a donor understand the impact that they've made, they're willing to give many, many more times. And the way to accomplish this is by hyper-personalizing the content. So the content that goes back to the donor should be about them, their name, their gift, etc. The good news is that the platform does a lot of these things for you, so you don't have the work that you might have expected. And come on, advanced slide. Okay.
So click the image and then we'll go to the campaign.
Okay. So what we're looking at here is the administrative view of a campaign running on our platform. You can see along the top, we've got the organization that we're doing. We called it Building a Better World Together, was our fantasy nonprofit. And in this case, it's a fiscal sponsor, right?
Yes.
Julie?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fiscal sponsor is Building a Better World, and then my mock project is Sonoma Students Travel.
Right. And so what we're seeing here is just some easy to use navigation that helps you look through the content of your campaign. Now, you might notice here that there's a bunch of edit pencils. And the idea is can we make it really easy for you to do storytelling? So for example, if you're setting the title for your campaign, can we go and add something into like this? Come on, typing. Oh man. I'm laughing, try and speed it up and it goes slowly. So the idea here is that this is how easy it can be to change something. Anything with an edit pencil is editable, including the images and the media that goes behind this. There's a media gallery with lots of different photos and multiple videos or multiple photos, if you like. You know, each campaign has a goal meter optionally if you want to show it. And we have this contribution button. When we talk about can you change the label, it's as simple as pop up a change in the label and save it. So when we talk about making these changes, it's designed to make it really simple for you to do. And when you have a nice looking campaign page like this, it may seem like it took a lot of effort to make this, but in fact, it's just like using a word processor. So in this case, we're putting in the content, maybe putting in some images and setting some fonts and some buttons. And even, these are buttons, I believe, that go back to showing the impact of the gift. It doesn't take a lot of advanced skills. You don't need to know anything about web publishing or layout in order to make a great looking campaign page. And Julie, do you want to add to that at all?
Actually, let's go ahead and talk about how easy it is to share the campaign.
Sure. So if we go back up to the top here, you might notice there's this sharing set of buttons here, and this will bring up and sharing to the variety of channels we talked about. So Facebook sharing is still important for a large group. Twitter sharing, funny enough, is starting to grow. We're seeing a lot more results from sharing on Twitter. We'll see what happens with Elon Musk and what he's going to do with it, whether he'll make that better or worse. You can share on LinkedIn, and this is becoming, especially for bigger corporate projects, this is becoming more interesting to people. We talked about your corporate sponsor. They might share on their LinkedIn channel that they're supporting you. You can send it by messenger. You can send an email. You can embed it and put it on your website in a widget, and put it in a badge that would load on your website. When you design what you want it to look like, and there's a couple of different options, you can then get the code and paste it into your website if you want to integrate it to your website. So there's lots of different ways you can share.
Yeah, it'd be great too if we touched on the, you want to just click one of the donate buttons and we'll show what that looks like to the donor.
Yeah, sure. So this is where we're showing the long descriptions of what happens. And with the contribution, someone can put in their own amount if they choose. This was set as a default, but any of these could have been a default. But this is a very important thing. There's a checkbox here to ask the donor if they give permission to use the funds in an unrestricted way, and to apply it where it's needed most. And most of contributors will do this. So it gives you the discretion to use it without having to worry about attributing funds to each of these different levels. And in this case, we had a match from the corporate travel partner that was shown at the top of the campaign, and they're doubling up the impact. So when you give 20, they're matching it with 20, and we automatically show that in the checkout flow. We prompt for the donor's name. They can hide their name or they can hide their contribution from the public. They can't hide it from you, obviously, because it's not legal to do that. We get their email address, and you can have this button pre-checked to send them campaign updates so that they can then follow along with the results of the campaign by email. They can make a message for you. They can even add a photo if they want when they leave a message for you. And we show the fees that they're having, how much they're going to pay, and they can continue through. And then we show either PayPal, or in this case, a credit card form as well, or using Google Pay, or if you're on your Apple device, Apple Pay.
So I want to touch on the prior page to the option where the donor had the box to apply the gift wherever they want to. So when your project is creating their campaign, if they choose to not have the pictures and not have these descriptions, there's also the option not to even include this line. So it certainly increases the likelihood of donations to include the pictures and the amounts, but there's also the option to just leave it as dollar amounts that the project could then apply however they want to.
Right. So just to kind of speed through, because there's a couple of things we want to get to questions. If we're taking a look at a campaign like this, there's a detailed transaction report that you get that you can download as well, and download that into an Excel file or a CSV file for importing it into other systems, or to do your reconciliation if you like. But each of the contributions here, you see the information about the tax receipt, whether it's been sent. You can resend an email with the tax receipt attached. And there's actually a lot of data about each of these transactions, knowing what the donor data is, what their email address was, the transactions with Stripe or with PayPal, so you can track down what's actually showing to your bank account. And in the fiscal sponsor world, this is all layered properly, meaning that the sponsee projects can be still sharing your banking details and having your payment processing accounts, and having that information deposited into your account, and the tax receipts issued under the name of your 501c3 with the name of the project identified. That can be done automatically, and that but all the reporting is broken up by organization. So it makes it much easier for you to track where the funds have come from, how they're being applied, what projects they came from, etc. Julie, do you want to add to that?
Sure. So you as the fiscal sponsor see all the transactions across all of the campaigns, across all of the projects, and each project can only see their transactions and their campaigns. So project A can't see project B, but they also have access to their own information.
Yeah, and we do that by managing teams. They can have teams of users. Extreme permission test, lots of permissions. That's an interesting one. That's what you call a super user. But with each of the projects, you can end up having their own team, and they can manage that team themselves if you would like them to, so that you don't have the same level of work that you might expect in managing a system like this. It's a big focus for us to try and reduce the administrative overhead for both you and for the projects, so that they can run more campaigns, raise more money, and have fewer issues for you in managing them.
Yeah, and I want to just, before we move on to the hub, I just want to address tax receipts. So once these are turned on at the organization or the project level, when there's onboarding, all of the subsequent campaigns have tax receipts. So it's a one and done deal. And then every other campaign that comes in the future will have a tax receipt.
Yeah. And there's an example of the default layout that's available. Okay.
You want to jump over to the hub? We just want to show you one more thing briefly, and then we'll move into questions. So while Daryl brings the page up, we at FundRazr recently launched a hub as a place for all fiscal sponsors, all nonprofits to see our upcoming webinars, and they're free to join in, they're open. We also started implementing live office hours, where twice a week you can come have a live person, do a chat, it's drop-in, no reservations required, and Campbell, who is on the call here, does some of these. So one thing we're really, can you go to the calendar page?
Yep.
One thing that we're really happy and proud about here at FundRazr is supporting you as fiscal sponsors, as nonprofits, and your projects. We want you to be successful. So if your projects or you are working on a campaign and you've got a question and you're like, hey, live office hours are tomorrow, jump in on that call. You don't need to make a reservation for it. And then you'll see we've got another webinar coming up next week that is not fiscal sponsor focused, but of course will work, with some tips about making your campaign better and having strategy. So I hope you see how we are here collectively to support you as fiscal sponsors, support your projects to help you be as successful as you can be. So we're going to move into questions in just a moment, but one more thing I want to mention before we do is some of the folks on the call here are fiscal sponsors, and I want to put out an offer to fiscal sponsors, to nonprofits joining the call, that the first 5 folks that send me an email are welcome to have a 1-hour comprehensive strategy meeting with myself and Shannon, who is our VP of Campaign and Client Success. So I'm going to drop my email into the chat, and it would be our pleasure to meet you and brainstorm how we can make this work for you. So with that, any questions?
Amazing. So you can just go ahead and drop questions directly into the chat, or you can use the question and answer function, and you can ask questions to Julie, Daryl, kind of general questions, myself, if you have any questions about the office hours or anything like that. But we're here for the next 15 minutes to kind of hang out and see if any questions have brewed over this presentation.
One thing I want to pass along while we're waiting for questions to come in is, we showed you a campaign for exchange students, but the platform works for arts organizations. We've got a couple of fiscal sponsors using us that are art focused. So, it works for live theater, for documentaries, books. The creative community is also using FundRazr. So the platform will work for a wide variety of projects and campaigns and fiscal sponsor focuses. So even though we just showed one example of a exchange student program, it's very diverse and can meet lots of needs.
Yeah, Julie, I think one of the things that people get kind of surprised at is how comprehensive the platform is. Now, don't hear scary when you hear comprehensive, because it can do all sorts of different kinds of fundraising for projects. So if you have a project that wants to do a walk or a ride or a run, a peer-to-peer type event, we have great capabilities for all that. If they want to do something that's very specific about funding a special, I mean, you showed some of the ones where funding kids going into the camp, or we've had others where they were rescuing pigeons, and the variety of different kinds of campaigns like that. And a lot of people are kind of shocked at how much they can do with the platform, and that we give this away for free, that we allow people to use the platform without a charge. And they can either use our two models of just the simply free plan, where they have to pay payment processing costs, or the nearly free plan, which is where we help them with fee recovery and getting the cost of their fundraising down to between 1% and 2%, including the payment processing cost. So it's a pretty surprising result for everybody. We typically get so what's the catch? And I spent a lot of time explaining there's no catch. We know that if we collaborate with the community and how we provide this technology, we take care of each other, and we can help you raise more money, and we still can be healthy along the way. So
Yeah,
don't be shy with your questions. Come on in, and as you can see, we're quite casual about the way we do things.
Yeah, just to build on that, I actually worked with the Pigeon Rescue Palomacy. They're amazing. And, that was, there was one day where I had a call with them, then working with a campaign that was doing, they work with the National Field Hockey League of the United States. So going from that to that, and then also working with a campaign locally here that works with elderly dogs and elderly rescue. So it's a very robust platform that offers a lot of functionality, and it's just got to ask, and we'll be happy to jump on and show you what we can do. And it's definitely an amazing platform, and there's such a wide variety of capabilities for basically all your needs. And yeah, feel free again just to either put the chats in the question and answer function. So if you scroll down to the bottom of your page, you should see the Q&A option pop up. And then also you can use the general chat function. And I know Daryl loves questions more than pretty much anything around here.
Yeah, we try and be very, very approachable because, well, first off, because we're curious about what you do and how we can help. So that's the main reason for that. But also, go ahead and try and stump me. We've been doing this a long time. We've only run a couple 100,000 projects and a few million donors and $250 million raised so far. So sometime soon we're going to get good at it if we keep up.
Well, Daryl, I've got one question. Since you just came from the Giving Tuesday, is there anything else from that meeting that you haven't had an opportunity to share?
Well, I think there's a lot of interest going in what Giving Tuesday is going to look like this year, with the economic headwinds and the concerns about war in Ukraine and unrest in Iran and all these, inflation and everything else. I think there's some concerns about that. We're trying to spend the time to understand what's motivating donors this year and what's motivating fundraisers, how to help them be more effective in doing this. And, there was, I don't know, I think there was 30 of us that are in the room, and this is representing all the major players in the industry, from, the Blackbauds of the world and the Donors Choose of the world, and platforms like ours, platforms like Charity Navigator. And I think it's important for everyone to know that we're collaborating. We're sharing data about how to make this work to benefit the overall industry. And, as a small player in the industry, in terms of number of people, we get to punch above our weight in terms of committees like this and working on this type of result. So I think I want everyone to know that we're bringing this learning back into our platform. We're increasing and improving what we do to make it more effective for you every single time we can. I'm really interested in to hear, we did a working group on the concept of advocacy and how can we broke off into a small group and trying to understand how we can get people to advocate more if they want to, but it seems to be that they're either a little afraid of it or they're not clear on how they can do it. How can we make that better? Our platform is kind of strong compared to some of the others in terms of that social sharing and the automatic messaging that we generate that helps communicate the impact of a donor's gift. And that gives them more opportunities to share compared to some of the others. So it's a big topic for me because, I did my TED Talk on that. Philanthropy is entertainment, binge watching for good. If we can get the size of the gifts down and increase the frequency, we can get more money and help deliver a better experience for the donor. So,
Any questions on the 6 tips? Did those all make sense about incorporating photos and updates? And I mean, they're not big changes on the platform. They're really easy to do with the pencils, as Daryl showed, but they did make an impact with donors, and they resonate. So any questions on those?
And if you don't know how to vocalize your question in chat, you can put your hand, use the raise hand function, and we can unmute you. If you don't know how to quite word it in text, you can definitely, again, just raise the hand and we'll be able to allow you to unmute to ask your question. If the words aren't coming out on the keyboard correctly, I definitely know that I have writer's block sometimes when I want to ask something, I can just verbalize it a lot better. So you can definitely do that as well.
yeah. And if you don't want to send in a question, that's cool. You can ask us later, and we'll quit beating on you right now. We're just trying to make sure nobody's feeling shy. We're probably not helping if that's the case, but
yeah, there's also the
and you've got my email in the chat, so really email me anytime with any, if a question comes up later, or you are reflecting back on the presentation or the campaign and you want me to explain it, certainly reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help.
Yeah.
And again, or you can come hang out with during the office hours with me and ask any questions that we can go over. We can even go over the pigeon
Campbell
rescue.
Loves to talk to you. Come talk to Campbell. He loves.
Yeah.
Love this.
Not wrong.
Not wrong. No, not wrong. We're a gregarious bunch. Well, at that, then I think if there's no questions, I think what we'll do is we'll let it wrap, and appreciate everyone's time for listening in and hanging with us to the end, as I see you've done. And we look forward to helping you out with this and see if we can't make a splash this year and help you move your missions along.
All right. Thank you, everybody.